Hey guys, Talamic here with DNB Academy, and today I want to talk about using a separate sub on your bases, why you'd want to do it, and a couple of tips for when you need to do it. So we've got two baselines here. I'll look at the first one, the top one first. So I've got this basic Reese, which is just taken from my sample preset pack, from DNB Academy. Pretty simple baseline. But the way it's made up is, even though we have got a sub here which I've turned on, if you look at the two saw waves here, they're detuned, and so we're getting that kind of movement and that pulsing. And you can see from the tone here, from the level here, there's quite a discrepancy in volume levels throughout the bass, which is not what you want. You want something that's got some power and some sustain to it. If you are using a bass line that's got a load of movement to it, then you'll have a few sections in your tune where it just kind of dies out. Adding movement to your bass is its own thing, but you want proper control over that. And in your sub particularly, you want to make sure it's got some power. Whether you've added that movement or not, it should have consistent power. So if I add a spectrum to this, you can see that even though we've got a sub in the bass, our sine sub fundamental is bumping up and down all over the place. So we need to make sure that we tidy that up. So for something like this, it's quite easy. We can just create a new track, copy the MIDI over, and then go in, add serum, just add a sine. I tend to try and mimic any settings from the bass, and we'll look at that in a bit more detail later on, but I'll try and make sure that like the glide and everything is the same. And then we will obviously go in and high pass this one here. And then we can group them together and saturate them or something to help gel that tone together a bit more. But now if I look at, if I move our spectrum onto the group, you can see that while there's the movement happening here and it still has that tone, that sub is now more consistent. So before, you can see it jumping around, and then after, you see it's much more constant. So as I said, really easy when you've got something that's a bit more static like that to just add a sub. If I now look at something else that's got a bit more movement to it, so again, another bass taken from my preset pack for DNB Academy. And we've got this movement happening with this LFO here. So what we would want really is that our low end sub kind of mimics that movement. So we'll copy it over that patch in its entirety. We'll group them together. And then I will edit directly from this patch. So we'll turn all of that off. I'll go into the effects and turn them off because we want the sine to be clean. This has a sub in it, but I'll kind of talk about why you might not want to use the sub in the patch later on, why this might be a better way to do it. So in fact, that's exactly what we need. So what I would do if it didn't already have it mapped is take the movement that is my main LFO. If you have multiple LFOs doing movement, then you might have to make a decision as to which one is best mapped to your sub. But for this, everything's coming from this one LFO, so it's really easy. Drag that onto my sub and then use that to modulate the level. We'll crank the level up a bit. High pass this one here. And then we'll put some saturation on the sub. Turn that down a bit. And there we go. We now have sub movement that is matched to the movement of the filters on the bass, so it feels more uniform. If we just had, say, this one here on it, it doesn't really feel like it fits. Now, the reason we might not want to use the sub that's built in is because if I start post-processing this sound here, distorting it, adding some effects like chorus or something like that, it may affect the sub in post. So it may, if we're adding chorus, for example, you're not going to want to put chorus on your sub. You could split the bands out and do multi-band processing and stuff like that, but it's a bit more faff, really. If we're distorting it, then we might not want to distort the sub as much as we're distorting the highs and the mids. And also, if I look at the sound on its own, I now have a level for my sub. I can control the volume of the sub directly to make sure it's loud enough, or if it's too loud, to bring it down in volume. If we want to do something like sidechain, I can sidechain the sub differently than I can sidechain the mid layer, for example. So there's a load of benefits to making sure that you've got a separate sub. There might be instances where you don't need it, you don't want it. I don't have it in every single tune. But in most instances, it's a much cleaner way to get your sub sitting with the rest of your tune, rather than trying to tackle with all of it in this single bass layer. So there you go. Nice, simple techniques. Any questions, let us know, and I'll see you in the next one.